Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. For the next hour, we plan to have an engaging presentation and conversation pertaining to future of work and how the domains of platform economy, sustainable fashion, and labor policies interact to impact employability, skilling, and so on. For today's webinar, we are joined by three experts, each of whom has done phenomenal work in this space and have been kind enough to share their experiences and learning with us. First up, we have Kanika Sarsia. Kanika is a research scholar pursuing MPhil in sociology at Delhi School of Economics, and her ongoing research on platform economy is an attempt to explore the changing nature of labor and employment relations amidst the technological changes. She has been a representative at the third edition of Global Knowledge Sharing Forum on transition to formal economy at the International Training Center of the International Labour Organization in Turin, Italy. She was also a delegate at ILO's Summer School 2019 on Future of Work, where the outcome document on enhancing the future implementation of SDG 8 was adopted. Welcome, Kanika.
Thank you.
We then have with us Hilary Hazel. Hilary is an economic and policy analyst at the Zambia Federation of Employers with extensive experience in policy research and advocacy in the area of labor and human resource development. He has served on several of Zambia's policy formulation and review committees, including formulation of Zambia's national employment policy, the Decent Work Country Program, labor law reforms, social protection reforms, and has also been part of several studies such as ILO's Enabling Environment for Sustainable Enterprise, Law Growth Nexus Study in the construction sector of Zambia, etc. Welcome, Hilary. And
thank you so much.
Last but not the least, we have our final speaker for the day, Katia Almeida. Katia is a fashion designer and CEO of Callium Atelier, a startup project and brand based in Portugal with the philosophy of sustainability and circular economy. She has trained in a studio of designers and has worked as a line coordinator in clothing production. She also has been associated with green movements like Fashion Revolution and has also co-founded Let's Swap, which is a swap market for clothes. I'd like to thank all the three speakers very much for joining in and for everything they're going to be sharing with us over the next hour. Before we begin though, just a few quick housekeeping items that I want to share with everyone joining us today. At the end of the talk, we'll have a Q&A session with the speakers. I hope everyone is able to see the chat tab and the icon on Zoom at the bottom of the screen if you're using a desktop, laptop, or even a mobile app. Feel free to leave any questions that you might have for the speakers in this particular tab. We'll be keeping track of all those as the session goes on, and we'll try to cover as many of them as possible in the given time frame. Also, post the Q&A session, we'll also give you a quick overview of the Global Shapers communities shaping the future of work project and let you know how you can contribute to it and remain updated on the progress made. With that, I'll leave the floor to Kanika to start off today's session.
Thank you, Vignesh, for introducing us, and it's a pleasure to be here on the webinar. Since I'm working on platform economy, I would just a brief introduction. What is a platform? So platform is a technological apparatus that acts as an aggregator, which mediates market demand and supply, where users and service providers, customers, they actually interact using a digital application. So the whole organization of work and labor has taken a leap forward from this traditional industrial flow setup to an application-based economy. And platform labor is an important component. So if you have heard of Uber, Uber is a platform and the cab drivers are the platform labor. And Uber has a tagline, which is a catchy tagline which says, be your own boss. So the idea is platform labor are now celebrated as micro-entrepreneurs or self-employed. But drawing from my own research experiences, what happened in October 2018, these Ola Uber cab drivers went on a nationwide strike. And interestingly, Delhi High Court denied their rights to go on a strike because simply they were not employees, but understood legally as independent contractors. So this made me really interested in exploring this whole domain of platform ecosystem, which revolves around new forms of employment relationships and rather an ambiguous and disguised employer-employee relationship. I think Katya will share her experience about her own fashion entrepreneur. Go ahead, Katya.
Thank you very much, Kanika. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk a bit about my experience and the scenario. I studied fashion design, and already at the university, we speak a lot about eco-friendly fabrics and how it is important to low CO2 solution, to have CO2 solutions in the fashion industry. And but just with the fashion revolution movement, I knew more about labor laws, and I knew about the collapse of the Rana Plaza garment factory in Bangladesh. And they produced mostly for fast fashion brands. And this made me think a lot about how important it is to have in the fashion industry a fair trade production, that the people have more laws, that the people has decent work. And this made me think that is very important to have like if I have a startup in the fashion world, it should be sustainable. It should be at these days for a good future. A sustainable base is essential. So we can go on with Hillary.
Yeah, thank you. I think the experiences are pretty much similar when it comes to platform economy as we are moving deep into it across the globe. I just wanted to begin by sharing one example of what it is doing, borrowing from what Kanika already explained around the Uber platform. Back here in Zambia, we do have a similar platform they call Ulendo. It works exactly like Uber, where someone has created this platform where drivers register themselves, and then they're using that platform to get clients and work in their businesses. So a few years ago, this young man bought himself a car and started the taxi business on that same platform, which is similar to Uber. Unfortunately, a few months down the line, the gentleman got involved in an accident, and he had to be amputated one of the legs. Now the question arose as to, was he in someone's employment environment that he should be compensated by the workers' compensation? And who was to cover his medical? Can the person running that platform be mandated to cover his medical expenses, or even compensate him for the injury? He got injured at work, obviously, being an accident. But then the question arose, was he an employee of that company that is running that Uber platform? So it's that kind of picture that the new feature in the world of work is creating, because there's no first and foremost physical contact in terms of employee-employer relation between the Uber drivers and the Uber owner, the platform owner. So that's the kind of experience that I've been seeing, and that's just one example of how the legal framework is still failing when it comes to addressing these Uber platform and other platform kind of employment.
Well, thank you, Hilary, for your experience. I would just ask you another question. What comes to your mind when you think of future of work?
Yeah, when I think of future of work, I must say the first time that I heard about it, it was quite a challenging topic, so to say, because once someone explained what it meant, it kind of brought a lot of fear in me that we're going to see a lot of loss of jobs as we know them currently. But right now, having been involved in these issues for quite a number of years now, a couple of years, what comes to mind is just how much change we need to make, both as individuals as well as then at national level, in terms of providing for employer-employee relations in the world of work going forward. The relations that we know now are slowly disappearing and being replaced by virtue relations between employer and employee, and this is bringing a lot of challenges, both policy level and legal perspective. So really what comes to mind is the challenges that are coming to us as a continent, especially, as well as a globe, in terms of adjusting to these changes.
And Katya, what do you think the future of work is to be like, especially in your industry?
I think the future of work is going to be a lot about change. As always in history, the world will be more and more digital, as Hillary just said, and the artificial intelligence will make part of our day-to-day, also in our workplaces, even in the fashion industry or in any other industry. One of the important topics of nowadays and the future is how to stop the climate change. And this is a big issue. So enterprises and governments need to create jobs to protect the environment, but not just that, also apply more and more laws to aim for decent work. For example, in a Portuguese scenario, we are going through a demographic crisis. We have the 5th lowest birth rate in the world. Even being in a country with a very high life expectancy, the low birth rate turns it unsustainable. But the decreasing population doesn't mean that we have to live precariously. We just need to go to the right solutions. And here, for example, the artificial intelligence, having robots in the workplaces can be one of the solutions for to have a better quality of life, even with a low birth rate population.
Okay. Well, for me, I think future of work is different for different people and with different countries, with varying level of skills, capital, be it economic or social capital. It will not have an unified impact. Also, with technological innovations, it will certainly affect the social settings that we are living in. So let us move forward with the forthcoming challenges that we're going to face in the future of work. Um, of course, as Katya mentioned, AI will bring a lot of joblessness. Let me get the facts straight here. Every 100 positions made redundant in traditional technology, only 10 new AI-based jobs are being created. So you see, the crisis is actually real. And if we talk about platform economy, technocrats like Nandan Nilekani believe platforms will formalize the economy. But on the other hand, some scholars are skeptical. Given that gig economy, or for instance, delivery boys or the crowd workers, they are mostly vulnerable in terms of job uncertainty and lack of social security net. And there's a simultaneous fear of rising inequality amidst the monopolization of tech giants. Moreover, it is difficult to locate the role of state in this whole setup of platform economy because there's a lack of regulatory mechanism. And given this political situation in the developing world, like of India and also African countries, there's dearth of leadership and vision. So, for example, in India, we recently drafted a labor code in 4 areas, but nowhere it deals with the idea of platform economy. So the problem is, with this 4th industrial revolution, everything is moving so fast. However, the legislations are likely to run out of date, and hence, I think our policymakers really need to catch up this pace. What do you think, Katya?
I think, for example, in the fashion industry, one of the forthcoming challenges is to apply a good working global circular economy. Because even in other industries, we think in a line economy. We create a product, and then he has a really small life cycle, and then it goes to the garbage. And we need to make it really circular so that it's economically sustainable. A second point is we need to create more green jobs globally in the fashion industry, but even in other industries. Another point is to control and supervising laws to reduce CO2 emissions and to protect employees' rights. And also in the fashion industry, we have already a lot of freelancers. And here we have the same challenge as in the platform economy, like in the Uber. It needs to have more laws to control the minimum wage and to give the people really fair trade jobs. And we also need to find alternatives and solutions for the jobs that will be robotized in some countries, that it's not going to be very sustainable in terms of economy. Yes, let's hear Hillary, what do you think about the forthcoming challenges?
Yes, from the policy point of view, there's so many challenges that we're already facing, not coming, but already being seen. Like I was introduced, I've been involved in a number of policy formulation processes back here in Zambia for the last 7 years or so. And amongst the many things that I've noticed is what Kanika already mentioned, that when we review some of these policies and legislation, we don't take into account what platform economy and artificial intelligence is bringing on the board. A good example that I would give is in terms of the challenges that we are facing right now, not coming, is that we have laws that are governing who an employer is, who an employee is. But when you look through those laws and policies in most countries, they do not go to the extent of defining how an employer and an employee will be relating in the space of what is coming. For instance, we keep talking about Uber, and this is the example you get anywhere you go when you're discussing future of work. Can we really classify an Uber driver as an employee of Uber? I don't know about other countries, but in my country, according to our laws, that person is not an employee of Uber. That person is contracted by Uber to be an employer of his own. He's a business person by himself, and he's just using a platform of Uber to do his business. So he's not an employee of Uber. Therein lies one challenge. Second challenge is you have these businesses that are set up in a virtual environment. There's no physical office where they're doing their business. So then how does the government tax them for tax purposes? How do you even begin to understand how much they are making on their platform for you to base your tax on? Therein is a challenge policy-wise. When it comes to what Kanika alluded to, the issue of social protection, for instance. Currently in Zambia, we have, and this is a common social protection system across the globe, where an employer provides a percentage towards social protection for the person when they retire, as well as the employee themselves. But if in the first place, the relationship is not defined between an employer and an employee, the question arises, who will be contributing on behalf of that Uber driver to social protection? On their own, they'll contribute, but who else? Does Uber owner make the contribution? It raises the big question. In the case of in an event of an injury, for instance, who do you, like the example that I gave, who do you mandate to take care of that injured driver who is working on Uber platform? At the same time, as a government, they might want to make sure that you ensure decent work for the workers in the world, in whichever country you're in. But then the question is, if you do not know where this company is operating from, because they're a virtual company, how do you inspect to make sure that there's decent work happening there? And all these challenges are really coming up in terms of policy perspective, because we now need to think ahead and not just think as a country, but as individuals. How can I personally take care of my future, for instance? how do I personally make sure that the law protects me in whatever I'm doing? We have a lot of instances. For instance, India is well known to harbor a lot of call centers for other countries across the world. For instance, a company will be based in the UK or the US, but its call center is in India. And these are employees that are answering calls on behalf of this company X that is in the US, but they are in India. They've never even sat face to face with the human resource manager for this company in the US. So in the case of having a challenge as an employee of that company X, how do they relate? How do they even begin to seek redress? Who do they forward the challenges? Is it the Indian government? Is it the US government? There are all these challenges that are coming of borders now beginning to be non-existent because of the virtual interaction that people are having in the world of work. So all those challenges policy-wise are really beginning to have us, people who are developing these policies, think hard, and oftentimes solutions are lying with the people themselves beginning to realize that I have a role to play. And if I don't take this as a personal challenge, no one will. Because really, as it is, policies are there that are governing work, but they will not cover me as an individual who's involved on the virtual world as a business person.
All right, Hilary. Katya, what do you think? Are we prepared? And if not, what needs to be done?
I think in general, I think we are just halfway prepared, or even not that. Governments and people that have more power needs to wake up and see the needs of the future world. Not just planning the next 10 years, but really planning the next 50 years. Another point that I think is very important is the education. If anyone in the world would know how to better take care of the environment and what are the rights, people would act more. The topic about the circular economy, it's a thing that is going to take some time. But it can be a really great tool even to create new jobs, not just for sustainability. The growing financial incentives should be created. I'm sorry. Growing the financial incentives to create green startups and to change enterprises to be more sustainable should be a very important point. And I think that every country should make part of the Paris Agreement, and if not, without an acceptable excuse, they should pay a fine. Also, for decent work, non-compliance of the work rights should be punished with high fines. That's my opinion. And what do you think, Kanika?
Oh, I think the whole issue of demographic dividend in developing countries and demographic crisis in European countries is also needs to be taken into consideration. So I think there's a need of a lifelong learning. So the idea is, see, the technology is moving faster and faster. So the skill set which was needed 10 years back is no more applicable, it's rather redundant. So we need to skill and reskill our working population. It is very important because the skill acquisition itself has a long gestation period. So meanwhile, there would be a chunk of population which is unskilled at that point of time, and mostly because of digital divide. So for them, there's a need for social protection because some people definitely will be left unemployed. However, the state needs to intervene and take care of all these people who are unemployed, or rather help in reskilling them maybe. And given that, it should be kept in our mind that it is a long time for AI to take over in developing countries. I'm not talking about European countries, but especially in African and South Asia. What we face today is the problem of rising informality. And this is mainly because of due to the flexible nature of work that we are having. So there's one scholar, Professor Guy Sanning, he has termed these emerging workforce as the precariats. So these are people who work in an unregulated environment and they lack social security. They have so much uncertainty about their job. Will they have their job or not? For example, gig workers, they do work for a certain amount of time in piece rate system. And however, they have no provision to organize themselves to bargain for their rights or the prices, whatever they get as a wages. All these things need to be considered. And the problem is they're often the disguised banners are there to talk about them. They are called freelancers, they are called micro entrepreneurs, or even self-employed. These things are not only misleading, but also unfair. So therefore, it is actually the first step is to recognize them as workers, and not just recognize. What we need to do is we need to reconceptualize this whole legal definition of these platform workers. And when I call about legal, because of the legal gap, policy intervention is needed. And secondly, we also need to have an international alliance. We need to look into other countries, how they're dealing with. For example, Brazil is leading the way, and they are organizing platform workers through platform cooperatives. This platform cooperative creates a negotiating space for social dialogue between platform companies and platform labor as well as the government. So what ILO is struggling to locate the role of state, platform cooperatives can actually bring another option to create this negotiating thing in this whole digital economy. What do you think, Hilary?
Yeah, when you ask the question, are we prepared? I would answer it as yes and no. I say no because if you just took you met a random person and you asked them, what do you think about the future of work? I guarantee you the most common answer you get is, what are you talking about? They don't know anything about it in the first place. So if you don't know about something, you cannot be prepared about it. So definitely a lot of people are not aware of it. And so because of that, we are really not prepared for it. I say we are prepared in some way because policies and laws and regulations to govern some of these issues are already there. The only problem is that they are actually lacking in terms of addressing the platform economy as it has come. Really, what we need to look at is, for instance, the definition of who an employer is and who an employee is. It needs to be relooked at going forward if we are to really all be ready for it, number one. Secondly is the inequality that is likely to be brought about because of this platform economy. For instance, an example I would give is most African countries, as would be represented by my own country where I am, Zambia, is where I am here in the capital of the country. Internet is something that we do have even in our homes. Offices, homes, we have internet. But I drive just 30 kilometers from where I am. I'll be in a place where I'll have no access to internet. So if some of this to be based on the internet, people in those areas are definitely not going to have an opportunity to have those jobs. So already there's that discrepancy between those of us that are in the capital where we have access to internet and those that are 30, 40 kilometers away where there's no internet. So that is another challenge in terms of access to this platform, e-platform that accords someone an opportunity to even be employed in the first place. The other challenge that comes about is how do we make people make themselves ready? Because yes, it's about us looking at our education system to make sure that it's giving people the skills they need, maybe reskilling them and all that. But it's also an individual decision to say, as a person, I'm studying to be an economist. But this economics I'm studying is not going to be done in the old way of I get a book, I read, and then I physically write a report to the finance minister as to what I find out. It's probably going to be on the internet. How do I interact with it? So as a person, I need to be a tech savvy. And this is something that I take personal to teach myself sometimes. For instance, Uber drivers, for them to use that app, the Uber app application for their business, they don't have to go to school. It's a question of an individual taking time to understand how it works and how they can use it. So for me to be ready going forward, it's about taking personal decisions to read first and understand exactly what this e-platform that I'm getting into, what does it imply? How can I get the best out of it? What are the pros and cons that come with it? Until as a people, anywhere in the world, we take that route to take and not wait for a government somewhere to come up with a law that will protect me. I think we'll still be a long way from being ready to have this e-platform employment beneficial to everyone.
Well, all right. I think there's a mix of optimism and pessimism on the board. Uh, so, would you have some more concluding remarks, Hilary?
Yeah.
And I would really suggest we should be a little optimistic. I think we are young people and we lead the baton of this world and whatever.
Yes. In my being optimistic is that most economies are actually, or most countries are actually having a young population.
Right.
My country being one of those, and young people are very much into IT stuff. And because of that, I see them overcoming these challenges that we've pointed out. And really, in terms of the way forward, as my way of concluding is that we need to have policies and regulations in place that will support young people that are looking to engage in these kind of platforms and also innovate. And we need to have more and more people with adventurous minds to get into the platform economy and crack it, if I may put it that way, to their benefit and show others that actually you can benefit from it. It's not all gloomy and all that. There's a lot of benefit to be gained from it. And really, the policies are there. All that needs is to maybe tweak them here and there to be able to capture the platform economy as it is. So it's not so much of pessimism, but rather being pointing out reality as it is. But going forward, I'm pretty confident that with the reforms that I'm seeing in many countries, not only my country, in the labor sector, I think we will capture some of these challenges. But the key thing is everyone needs to open up their minds, get to know what e-platform is, get to know what gig economy is, and speak about it openly for everyone to be on the same page, everyone to appreciate it, and everyone to move with it and not just remain behind, be left behind. Like they say, it's either you move along or remain behind.
Thank you, Hilary. Katya, few concluding notes from your side.
I agree totally with Hilary. I think a better education around the world can change a lot of problems. Of course, in any of the future troubles, governments and enterprises can make change applying laws and supervision, but only if we have the knowledge and an opinion, we can together have even better ideas and make them really work, and also respect each other and the nature. As always in history, jobs will be changing, but if we are educated right, we know what is right and what is wrong in our workplaces, even if it's online, even if it's a platform economy, or even if it's a physical workplace. And in this way, with a good education, with the communication, I think we should find solutions, not just laws that many people don't know about them, but really educate everything so good that everyone has a good opinion and can say no if something is not going right. And yes, this is my opinion. What do you think, Kanika? What are your concluding remarks?
I think I will end with a development theory. There's a social change theory called Ogburn cultural theory, which says that, see, technology moves faster than what culture can pace up to adapt to changes. So I'm from sociology background. So I will say that society itself takes time, to adapt to the technological changes. So even though we go for the legislations, go for so many AI, robotics, and everything, people take their own time. So technological innovations actually need a parallel social innovation. As Hilary rightly mentioned, we need to open our mind. We need to be adaptive. We need to answer. We need to question first and then try to find solutions. It has to be in the discourse of the discussions. And once it's done, this requires a design thinking, because these are alternative forms of employment relationships, alternative technologies to do the same things we have been doing for so many years, but the way of doing is different. So to deal in a policy making, we need a design thinking. And because at the end of the day, even if we take sides, so if I take a side from one perspective of an Uber driver or platform labor in general, or if Katya is talking from a perspective of a fashion entrepreneur, and even if Hilary is saying, taking a side of from a government perspective, who is actually deep into this policy making, we all are party to this development process. So therefore the idea is we all have the same goal of this environmental sustainability for the production process, just not for the, even from the production process till the end result. We need to minimize this negative impact, environmental impacts, and taking into consideration the decent work agenda, that is SDG 8. So we cannot leave the labor who is at the helm of the affairs, because he is the person, or he is the person who is responsible for, and he's the root person who the whole impact upon us. So we need to take into consideration the decent work of the labor, and also the future of work we are talking about. Thank you.
All right then. So thank you so much, the three of you. I think we can probably start taking questions from the attendees now. Probably I'll just start off with one of my own. So the point that Hilary mentioned about call centers in 1990s and 2000 in India, that kind of struck me very deeply, because that is more than 20 years ago. And we seem to be facing a very similar situation now, where the relationship between an employee and an employer is not really defined. But what is appalling to me is that we don't seem to have necessarily learned a lot from the experience that we have had 20 years ago. I'm not sure why. Maybe this is just a very broad level question. But from your experience, have you seen us taking any learnings from there and implementing it to the platform economy situation where we find ourselves now?
Yeah. I think you're right in saying that we don't seem to have learned a lot of lessons. I think the only lesson that probably was we were quick to pick from there, and I suppose this is because it was about revenue for governments. It's from the perspective of taxing these companies, regardless of where you are set as a company. The governments have found a way of reciprocating the taxation of these companies to benefit both the host and the recipient countries. For instance, even if you have a call center that is in India, the US government still had a way of taxing that company based on the business that is being made in India. So that was learned. But when it comes to protecting of the workers, I think that was kind of left behind to a large extent. Although I would still say, I think just us realizing that was a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. I think that was a lesson learned.
Yeah.
We learned that when you have this kind of arrangement, it creates a lot of problems. But the difference that is we see from there and now is that even if it was across countries, the relation was still physical. These call centers had physical offices where
Correct.
these people would sit. So the Indian government could still follow to go and see what is happening in those call centers in India on behalf of whoever else wants to know. But with a platform economy, the challenge is going to be that maybe the owner of the platform that they're using is in the US or whichever country, and they're doing it in Zambia like Uber, but there's no physical space in Zambia where you can go to meet these people that are employed by this platform employer.
Yep.
So that is the difference that I see then and now, and it brings with it its own challenges. But I think the policies and laws were put across then in terms of how you can relate. For instance, if I was to employ someone in India to do my business there, the international law states that I have to follow what Indian labor laws say. So even if I may have my own laws where I'm setting up my business here, the person I employ in India has to be employed according to the Indian laws. And then the international laws govern that kind of relation. So there we learned a lesson and we covered in terms of policy and international regulation. But the challenge that is coming now is this absence of physical space where these people are working from for you to make follow-ups.
Got it. Got it. This is just to remind the attendees that if they have any questions, they can post it on the chat window, and I'll be taking them up and sharing it with the panelists here. So moving on, I had one other question from one of my colleagues. So she's also into the space of sustainable fashion. So this probably more up your alley, Katia. So this also has relevance with respect to labor policies. What she wanted to understand was, how are the labor policies currently set up in Europe, and would you be having any idea as to how they are set up in South Asia? Because from the looks of it, in South Asia they are pretty weakly defined and also pretty weakly enforced. Due to which we often come across issues of rampant atrocities such as gender-based violence, overwork, very poor work conditions that often ends up putting the people at risk. I think the example of the Dhaka fire is a good one where we actually saw that poor work conditions actually led to a lot of issues. How do you think this has been, is this being tackled or experienced in Europe? And, what do you think are the recommendations that South Asia can actually take up?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah. This
It was very long.
Sorry. So I mean, the crux of it is essentially how well are the labor policies defined and enforced in Europe vis-a-vis South Asia, because we have seen a lot of examples where poor work conditions, result in laborers experiencing a lot of atrocities, violence, and things like that. What's the situation in Europe like?
I think in Europe, the situation is a bit better. Most of the countries need to have a minimum wage, and this is a good thing, I think. And even like freelancers in Portugal, for example, they need to make social security taxes, even if you don't make money. Okay. You need to tax it. So even if someone doesn't show that they are getting money, they have to make some taxes so that they have social security for the health or for the future. And this is a good thing, I think. Okay. And for example, I don't know how it is working out of Europe, but even if you want to be an Uber driver, you need kind of go to the financial department, and you need to have like a freelancer's statement. You need to be a freelancer, and so you have some laws. They are not. I think they are not enough to really have kind of a fair trade situation, but it's better than nothing. I think it's kind of a path. I don't know if I really answered the question.
Maybe, I mean, maybe there is a lot for the South Asian region to maybe learn from the policies implemented and the system set up in place for Europe to probably avoid something, to make situations much better for the laborers themselves.
We have, for example, a lot of people that, or associations that are kind of, they are aware of the laws, they are aware of situations, and if anything goes wrong, it's in the next day in the news, and everyone is talking about it. So that is why I think education is very important, because if you know about what's right and what's wrong, you can go to the street and you can say what you think and what is wrong, and then it goes to the news, and sometimes this can move laws and can move the government and make something happen. Of course, it's not easy, but it's something we can work on it. Even in Portugal, even in another country of EU, and even in Asia, and even in Africa.
Yep, yep. All right, thank you so much for that. We have a question from Nishant Kishore. So he works as an engineer in a food delivery company in India, and so he says that they also have delivery executives with us who are the face of their platform. And his question is that, what do you think the companies like Swiggy, Zomato, or Uber should do to ensure a better job experience for them? Maybe to kind of add on to that, we start seeing, Swiggy, platforms like Swiggy mentioning some personal details about some details about the delivery executive as well to the customer, to give the customer the impression that this is not just some app which is delivering. There's actually some human being who is coming and delivering this to us. So I think these are probably some of the things, but is there something more that companies can do to ensure that they have a good, fulfilling job experience in these platform economy based companies?
I think there are there are so many gaps when we talk about the labor there and the company. So because of lack of communication, so I remember interviewing 50 Uber drivers. So most of them was saying, we wrote a contract, we signed a contract, but we didn't even know the first line of the contract. So first, the problem is we need to communicate to our delivery executive or an Uber driver or their urban clap service providers. We need to communicate so they feel like they are part of the company, and not just verbally, but just also on legal papers. That's why I said we need to recognize them. And once you recognize them as the employee, it's the first point. Then you have to bring them under this social security net, because just making them feel they are part of the family doesn't serve the purpose. Because there has to be a lot more things. They have to be, I don't know if flexibility allows you to simultaneously give them paid leaves, but there are other aspects. Maybe they can have that accidental insurance, or maybe they can, the company can pool into the social security schemes of their employees. So there are a lot many things that need to be done, and it can only be done with the wider net of the government schemes and everything.
Yeah. All right. So one recurring theme that I observed during the entire session is that there are two aspects to that of an employee. One is that of skilling, and one is that of social protection and rights.
Yes.
I understand that both need to move hand in hand, but I can't help but feeling that from an execution standpoint, it'll probably help us start skilling the people first, because as Katya also mentioned, awareness, education, and possession of skills automatically empower your employees, and automatically they start taking ownership of their own condition, and then start demanding for their rights. Do you kind of agree with that, or am I probably do I have my things misplaced in preferring skilling over rights, just to start off?
I think so. I think this is a good way, because lifelong learning is the future also. And not even that, I think if, for example, the platforms would have some training before you begin to work, it will be much better, and it will maybe increase some problems.
Hilary,
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Like I said in my concluding remarks of the presentation, is that really it borders down to making sure people are aware of what is going on, what is coming to the world, and you can only do that by awareness raising and also reskilling, because this is something that has been discussed actually at International Labour Organization conference last year, that we see technology taking up the world of work, but then as we do these technological advancements, let's do it with a human face, as they call it. And by that we mean having in mind that this technology will not work on its own, it will be working with people. And the only way you can do that is making sure that people are not left behind as we are advancing this technology. And this means reskilling them, making them aware of what technology is coming up and how they can work with it. So definitely reskilling and awareness raising is the starting point. Before even talk of changing the definitions and the laws, it has to be awareness amongst the people.
Yeah. I guess we have time for two more questions. I just ask one. So when it comes to skilling, one of the issues that we often see a lot of skilling institutions face is that getting people to attend trainings even when there is a guaranteed job often proves to be a very difficult thing. So starting with the cost of acquiring a particular student, and then ensuring that they actually see through the completion of the training program often ends up taking more than 50 to 60% of most of the budget allocations. This of course a very from the standpoint of someone who is a solution provider as a skilling organization, this can often feel very disheartening that most of their budget is actually going in acquiring and ensuring that people see through these trainings that they provide, when outside they realize that there is a lot of value in getting these skills. So how do skilling institutions start thinking about tackling this particular problem?
Yeah, I think that problem is actually common. From a point of view of what we are doing as Zambia around that challenge is we're trying to promote interaction between the various stakeholders around the skills development. And the way we are doing it is we are opening avenues, different avenues of how people can gain those skills or the reskilling. One of which is making sure that the learning can also happen in the workplace. Someone doesn't have to go to college or university completely for them to get the skill. Whilst they're working, they can have a mentor who every day or maybe two days a week or something like that shows them, takes them through what they're supposed to learn on their job. And then at the end of the day, they are recognized for the skill that they've gained whilst working. That way you avoid the challenge of people leaving school because they want to gain employment, maybe because they need some money or some survival instincts kicks in. But also at the same time, the training institutions need to engage not only with the business world that is requiring this reskilling for them to understand what kind of skills are required, but also with the general public for them to sensitize the public, say, look, at this moment in time, this is what the training we offer. The reason we offer this training is A, B, C, D. Just for the people to appreciate that, okay, this training institution is offering this because it's leading to this.
Understand.
Otherwise, it turns back to lack of knowledge and information, really.
Got it. So great. I guess that we'll probably pause with the questions over here. What I want to do over the next 5 to 10 minutes is just give a quick overview of the project that we have, that we are conducting as a part of Global Shapers Bangalore. So firstly, thank you so much, Kanika, Hilary, and Katya, for that engaging talk. I'm sure we all have been able to, relate to a lot of these points that you brought out during this conversation. Before I just jump into the giving an overview of what the project looks like, just an open message to all the audience over there. If you like this session and if you want to continue to receive updates on this project, you can find us across all major social media platforms at Global Shapers Bangalore. And you can also write to us at globalshapers@gmail.com, globalshapersblr@gmail.com. As you might know from the website and from various promotional posts that we have put up, Shaping the Future of Work has been a flagship project for us at the Global Shapers community. With the Bangalore hub, in fact, being one of the founding hubs of the project. We've been looking at ways in which we can contribute to this super relevant topic. And as Kanika also mentioned during the webinar, shaping the future of work means different things for different regions, and by itself is a very complex topic, which is why it was an important consideration for us to have speakers who are not only experts in different domains, but have also are also representing different regions of the world. One of the ways in which we are trying to contribute to the growing conversation around this topic is by organizing sessions like these, where people from different backgrounds can get together and still have some key takeaways. Why we started this project was because as global shapers, we felt we have a key role in defining how skilling, employability, and rights shape up, for our future generations. The initiative overall focuses on identifying skill gaps, mapping these fourth industrial revolution skills, and understanding how communities can be prepared to become more aware of these, and in extension, try and plug these gaps as well. To give you a bit more idea about the Global Shapers community, since a lot of you had reached out with that particular query. So this started off in 2011 and has grown to more than 450 hubs across the world. As a community, we have an impact area to focus on, and for 2021, the community has taken 3 specific impact areas. These happen to be firstly, education and employability; secondly, equity and inclusion; and lastly, climate and environment. Although in today's session, we touched upon the other 2 impact areas of sustainable fashion and labor rights, the future of work primarily falls under the education and employment impact area, where the goals are to equip the next generation with 21st century skills and encourage an entrepreneurial acumen amongst them. Just last month, we successfully actually completed the phase 1 of our project, wherein we floated a global survey about what the youth feel today about the future of work. We were able to reach to more than 3,000 people to gather their perspectives. And from the resultant data, we crunched the numbers to bring out a data-backed report with a lot of important insights, including region-specific insights for Latin America and Africa. This report is accessible, that the screenshots of which you see on the screen in front of you is actually accessible at our website, shapingthefutureofwork.com. And I urge all of you to go and check it out. Along with these insights, we've also published a conversation guide that will help anyone to start a discussion based on these results and prepare a local roadmap of sorts to tackle the issues that are plaguing your community. Again, urge everyone to take a look at the report and invite feedback on it. We have big plans for the phase 2 of this project, wherein we want to specifically focus on translating these insights into real world challenges. And for that, we need community participation, and all of you can, in your own way, contribute to that happening. Other than becoming a part of the conversation, we are also open to collaboration with subject matter experts and thought leaders from various domains whose views and works could impact the future of work. For more programs like these, it could be an interesting case study, a thought piece, etc. We're also looking to collaborate with local organizations, schools and colleges for information sessions, and making them aware of the relevant skills as well as rights. Essentially, we are trying to cast a wide net right now in starting discussions with folks from the government, academia, the industries, startups, venture capital firms, journalists, and the civil society. Anyone who would have a well-researched view on the topic of future of work. The idea is essentially to create a community of change makers, who can spark off a global conversation about the future of work. And all of you, form an important part of this particular community. Lastly, for all those who have reached out to us in asking how they can collaborate, well, if you have a story pertaining to this initiative that you feel is relevant, please reach out to us. You can also contribute to this by connecting us to potential contacts who you feel can add value to this initiative, so that we can partner with them to feature their ideas and their work through our events and report. Even if you are logging in from another part of the world, there is a global shaper near you who is working on this project and will be more than happy to connect you with them to explore avenues for collaboration. And of course, this goes without saying that any suggestions about what else we could be doing in this space are more than welcome. Feel free to drop a mail to us on our official email ID, which you would have received in today's invitation. As a follow-up to this webinar, all those who, all those of you who have registered will receive an email with the relevant links to our website, the report, and to the recording of this webinar for perusal at a later time. With that, I guess I'll thank you everyone once again very much for joining in. We plan to do this, much more events like this on a regular basis, and we look forward to having you be a part of our project. Thank you once again to all the speakers and the attendees for being a part of this session.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity also.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everyone. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.